formal of a call than we typically have, and that's purposeful. But to start with, I'm going to turn it over to Terrence Roberts, our chairperson, and let him say a few words, and then we'll get started as other people come in to the call. So Terrence?
Thanks, Dean. Good afternoon, guys. I appreciate everybody getting together with us this afternoon. The Tenant to Top organization, we've been trying to just stay in touch with everybody during this corona crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, and just see how Tenant to Top can be a connector and bring best practices to all areas of the upstate. And today we're just in your particular neck of the woods and are here just to listen and to see what we can do as an organization. And if we can't figure out, let's try to figure out how to make everything better during these trying times. Dean and his team have done a wonderful job of anticipating a lot of the things that have happened over the last 2 months. And as chairman, I'm very appreciative of that. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Dean because I think he'll talk about the format going forward today. Dean?
Yes, thank you, Terrence. What we're going to do is we have a number of categories that we're going to talk about. I've got a different person from our team who is going to be asking those questions in each one. And really, there may be from within the folks from Cherokee County who are here on the call, each of you may have a different area of expertise. So don't feel like everybody's got to be provide an answer for every question. But we're just holistically trying to get a good sense of what the general scope is in different, as Terrence said, in all the parts of the upstate, and also a sense of where there, as we do these in all the counties, what are the similarities and consistencies where, as we move forward, we can create some, whether it's programming or connections or whatever it is, that will give us some a greater clarity across the region and help all of our communities in one way or another. So we've got, as we said, a series of questions, but we want to make sure we have enough time at the end for some general response. Let me introduce real quick our team so we don't have to go through that in each section. In addition to Terrence and myself, we've got Erin Oots, who coordinates the Upstate Entrepreneurial Ecosystem. She's going to be asking questions about economic development and entrepreneurship. Then we have Michael Hildebrand, who is the director of the Upstate Mobility Alliance. Michael is going to ask questions about infrastructure and mobility. Then we have Justine Allen, who is our programs and events coordinator. She's going to talk about things or ask about things related to social service needs and challenges, education, things of that nature. And then Sharon Purvis is going to lead the wrap-up section as well. We also have with us Erica Huffman, who is on our team, and she's going to help with providing notes. Our goal is within 3 or 4 days to have a summary document that we'll send out to you all and have on our website. And then as we conduct all of these, we're going to basically put all the information up on a whiteboard and start looking at what the commonalities are. I know we have a couple of people from Centera and other places that are not necessarily in Cherokee County, and I'm glad to have those folks with us. I feel one of the goals of these calls is to make sure that we are connecting people from across the upstate, and that when you hear things where there are needs or opportunities for folks to be engaged, it is not always coming through us. So that's why I appreciate all of you guys being on the call as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Terrence to ask the first couple of questions.
Okay, thanks. And in my opening comments, I structured everything around the virus, but I specifically want to know within your county, your region, what has been the most impact and response around a couple of things, the following areas, and maybe give it maybe it's a group conversation, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, can you rank how people or stakeholders in the community have addressed these issues? The first one is personal well-being. How the social services and the healthcare system been during these times?
You're gonna need to unmute people.
Yeah, if you want to unmute folks,
Yeah.
Sharon, so we're welcome for any comments from, especially, obviously from our folks from Cherokee. Jim Cook, I see you on the line. Do you want to start? Do you have a comment?
Oh, whoops, Jim, there you are.
Jim?
Oh, I think maybe he has us on hold or something.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like, okay.
Well, who would like to?
Just probably fix his computer or something. Who knows?
Oh, hey, Ken, do you want to start?
Oh, is that Ken?
Yeah, I can give it a shot. I'll just let you know about Cherokee County, the industrial wise. That's what Jim and I deal with the industry around the county. They're faring fairly well, believe it or not. A lot of them pivoted very quickly to making PPE for the pandemic that was going on. So they pivoted and kept their people engaged and working. We had a little bit of trouble with Freightliner, who had to shut down for a couple of weeks, not due to any kind of corona virus in their buildings or anything, but they had supply issues. That seems to have been worked out. They've been back to work for a little while now. We have a few small companies that are struggling because I call it the trickle-down effect. Some of their customers that ordered all the stuff and they were going really good are now not paying their bills because they're having issues. So it's trickling back down to some of the smaller companies in Cherokee County who are struggling to keep going because they want to keep their people employed. And mostly industry didn't have as many layoffs as you would have thought during this. It was mostly the retail and service industry in Cherokee County. One of the largest ones was the Yellow Mall, which if you look at it, our unemployment numbers are percentage-wise higher than anywhere else in the upstate, but that is because we have a higher percentage of food and retail in Cherokee County. But overall, we're doing very well industry-wise.
So, Ken, on a scale of 1 to 10 for industry and manufacturing, you would give a 7, an 8. Where are you on the scale?
It's kind of hard to judge because some of them are lower and some of them are higher. I think they did a fantastic job. I think most of them probably around between a 6 and an 8.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
How about we've been talking a lot about the impacts of small business owners and people who have that are self-employed, that entrepreneurial in nature. How is that? How the small business is doing in the county?
Zig?
Maybe Brian can answer
Yes.
that.
Yeah, well, we are unique in many ways in Cherokee County. One of the things that we have noticed was that a lot of our small business owners, our mom and pops, have applied. Really, it was easier for them to apply for unemployment versus going through the loan processes. So I think all but one of our businesses in downtown applied for either unemployment or for some kind of government subsidy. We've kind of been pushing a lot of them to really look and not just blindly apply, but really look at their finances and see if they actually did need it, or if the restrictions for payback or for forgiveness were going to apply for their business. Because we had some that really it would not have done them any favors to do so. We do have some partnerships with smaller institutions like Carolina Foothills who can do microloans, and we've kind of had some that microloans worked better. They just needed a small amount just to get them through. So it's kind of all over the place, really. There's no one set thing that works. One thing that we have noticed is that, we talked yesterday in our meeting with the Cherokee County kind of COVID-19 Alliance that's working up. And for some things like the Big E, they applied, they got the funds, but with the 8-week restrictions, it wasn't going to work for them at all. And I think they're working to try and get those restrictions extended. I believe they said up to 24 months, if I'm right. Ken, I think that's what they said. He must be muted. Anyway, so we don't really have many businesses that have gone under. Most of our smaller businesses are still up and running, and I think we've had a big hit on a few bigger businesses, mainly restaurants.
Yeah. The restaurants that failed have done well, stayed open.
Most have. We lost some big ones. Our Olive Garden is closed permanently. Wings Etc., which was a competitor to, say, Daddy Joe's, they've closed permanently. One of the other barbecue places that was right next to QT on the exit, right by Starbucks, Big Daddy's Barbecue, has closed permanently as well. So, that's what we're seeing so far. The restaurants are being hit the hardest. Our mom and pops have been holding on.
Good. Scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, say a 6. Going with my gut.
Good.
Terrence, before we go down the rest of the list, I want to see if Tammy with the United Way could give kind of talk about the personal well-being, because I don't feel like we got to that level.
Yeah, that's true.
There, Tammy, are you on the line? Can you chime in?
Yes, and really, from a personal standpoint, there is still a lot of need in Cherokee County. Libby, our community resource coordinator, is the one who knows more about that area in that field. I do more of the fundraising campaign side, which right now, because of the time of year that we're in, it's a slow time. So it's going to be interesting to see what fundraising and campaigning is going to look like come around August, September. But from individuals in Cherokee County, there is still a huge, great need that we're seeing with people needing help with rent, power, water bills, those kinds of things, that have reached out needing help. And it's actually been individuals who are not the same ones that we've seen in the past as a repeated process. It is new clients. And it's mainly been ones that have been without jobs, that have been laid off, or that has been specifically affected by COVID.
And that's common. I've heard that message in other counties as well.
Yeah, and we're encouraging everyone to use the 211 resource line. There are funds that we have for COVID, and as far as food, there is a lot of food in our funded agencies right now, and we do not see a shortage of food. So really, personally, there's no reason that anyone in Cherokee County should be without food. But we do encourage individuals not to wait until they start a eviction process or disconnection fees and things like that. If someone needs help, we're encouraging them to go ahead and reach out for the help through 211. And then all those calls that go through 211 are then generated over to Libby as she gets time to return those and work with those individuals. We are still not open at the Partnership Center. We still have some, we have one agency, which is Safe Homes Road Crisis, that's there. They have an advocate that is only doing emergency appointments only. But as far as Libby and myself, we are still working remotely from home, and she's trying to handle as much as she can over the phone process.
Great. All right, Terrence, I'm sorry I took us off.
No,
track.
that was a great update. How about education? I think, K through 12, higher ed. I'm a sports guy, and I was kind of shocked that Furman pulled baseball and lacrosse yesterday, and the impact is obviously, I just saw where I think the top educators at USC are taking a 10% cut in salary. So can someone talk in regards to just the overall education maybe that you're seeing?
Well, Dr. Skates and Jim, can you guys talk to that?
Well, if you want to talk about the public schools first, I think the biggest lack in our public schools in Cherokee County so far has been in terms of academic support with remote learning. The teachers did a fantastic job of getting everything off the ground and doing all that they could do to flip their classrooms to a remote situation. But what we found in Cherokee County is that there are so many students who do not have Wi-Fi capability, and that was a struggle. I do think that it speaks highly of our community to see these Wi-Fi buses go out, so they would have feeding sites and they would, provide food for those students, and they also would pull the buses and have areas where the students could come and use the Wi-Fi buses. But what we encountered there, of course, is public school students who were younger cannot drive. And so some parents were not working from home and were still trying to work and support students in the classroom and in their academic endeavors. And it was a little bit cumbersome to get students to the Wi-Fi buses to be able to do the remote learning. And I think that was a huge area that there was some issues with. Another issue was just the thinking about the mental and physical needs of those students and of their parents as well. Teachers began to get increasingly concerned about how their students were faring during the pandemic. While we were, all isolated, they couldn't get to their students. They didn't know their immediate needs if they could not have interaction with them. Many of the teachers were able to reach out and stayed in constant contact with the majority of their class. But here and there were pockets where one or two students seemed to fall off the map. And so phone calls, trying to get, emails, trying to get the word out however they could. Some were going to homes to check in just to see. I think part of that is a Wi-Fi issue. I think part of that is even those parents that could have been reached over the phone, I think part of that was just an issue of pure exhaustion. Parents trying to work either from home or away from home, and yet make sure their children were doing what they needed to do in terms of their classroom work. And I think some of that was also tied to the mental area, the mental framework of the entire family. I think parents were stressed, students were starting to feel the stress. Teachers became guidance counselors and educators wrapped up into one. There was a lot of underground movement going on behind the scenes between teachers of, hey, can you assist in this area, or this child needs help in this area, maybe statistics or something like that. This is not my wheelhouse. Can we get help here? We had several churches, I know for sure our home church opened up study spots, and we had social distancing with tables in our gymnasium, and we allowed students to come in and had teachers there who could provide assistance for work if needed, if parents could get them there. So, I think there was a huge countywide effort from every stakeholder, whether it was business owners, educators, across the board. Everyone that could come in was trying to come in and help in terms of what was going on in education in our public schools. It was just such a quick turnaround that I think there were areas that maybe we're realizing now that we need to do a little work on should this occur again, and especially for those families that did not have access to Wi-Fi or could not actually drive to get the Wi-Fi service from the Wi-Fi buses. So, in that would be my take on public schools. As far as at the college level, this was an entirely new or entirely different area in some ways. We had a lot of concerns because we have students who are coming from across the state, but then also from across the nation. And then even beyond that, or across the world, we just had students trying to figure out, can I fly out to get back home? If I fly out, can I come back? If I fly now, will I even be able to get into my home country? So a lot of them were hitting their home countries and saying, I'm in immediate 14-day quarantine. A lot of things going on in the background with our professors. You know, we were really worried about our students. They're college students and they're older, but that doesn't negate the fact that they're our students. So a lot of worry about them, worried about, you know, could they get home? If they did get home, some of them were going to less than favorable situations at home in terms of their, you know, mental supports or how their mental health was going to fare, maybe the physical environment, the financial support. Just all types of various needs that we were trying to think about and trying to help figure out what can we do to support these students. So, you know, I think it was a huge eye-opener across the board in terms of education. I think a lot of great things happened in terms of higher ed in our own county at Limestone and in public school. But I think we definitely have a tick list of things or a jot list of things. These are things we need to be aware of, and should we face looking at education like this again in terms of remote learning or distance learning, what can we do to even have more support or provide more support for students and for parents?
Great. And then I just saw Pat Luker with the city of Gaffney come on. So Terrence, Pat can probably talk about the local government.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're just asking how different areas in Cherokee County have reacted to the current crisis, and we wanted to just ask maybe your take on how the local government, county government have fared during this time.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to provide much information. As the zoning administrator for the city, I also balance that with being a single mom with a son in school. So I have been working remotely and going in on weekends and at night just to provide as much distance from any possible exposure as possible there while trying to juggle the schoolwork. So I know that we've implemented a drop box at the city that we didn't previously had. We tried to move permit applications and business license applications outside into the waiting area. We've moved to emailing, accepting more application and information by email and providing more information by email, including permits and things of that nature. So it's been a learning process, and we've just simply adjusted. I've still been holding architectural review board meetings. On one meeting, we had 17 attendees on Zoom. So it's kind of touched a lot of different areas, but unfortunately, I'm not one to give a good picture for the county, certainly coming from the city, but also even from the city because I'm not in my normal location.
No, that's fine, and thank you. And Terrence, I know you've got to drop off in a couple minutes, so I will take over here. What I will say is on some of these, as you can tell, we're working from a script. So for like the county and others that are not on this call, we will send to, in that case, Steve Bratton or whoever, some information and try to add to what we get out of the call today. I think it was you, Brian, who mentioned a new COVID-19 kind of committee that y'all are creating.
Yes.
Are there new, describe what is that? Are there new local partnerships that are being created around the crisis? Can you describe what that is?
Our first meeting was yesterday. We had our first meeting. It was actually at Limestone College. Steve Bratton, James Taylor, we had Dr. Parker from Limestone College, as well as the CEO of Spartanburg Regional in Cherokee County. We had the owners of some small businesses, Matt Sossman from Sossman Construction. We had Shag from Daddy Joe's, and we had Kyle Hackle, who owns the Big E, myself included, as well as Ann Angermeyer from the Upstate Workforce. We also had, who else did we have? Frannie Stockwell, who was supposed to be on this. I'm not sure where she is here. I thought she'd be on this meeting with us, but Frannie Stockwell from the chamber. Basically, we put us all in a room, social distancing, of course, sat down and spent about 2 hours just really kind of going over each sector that each of us represented and kind of what we're doing here, and just really talking about the problems that each of us are facing and how we can kind of unite together. Taking a look at the plans that Greenville already has in place, as well as Spartanburg, and seeing what they've laid out as far as a plan of attack for the new designation. I think it's $100 million. Ann Angermeyer told us yesterday that it's going to be coming out for South Carolina for funds to be distributed to businesses and help kind of reestablish the commerce in South Carolina. What we're looking at right now is not a great picture. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I will just kind of touch base. Steve Bratton, from the county perspective, everything is down financially. They're not hitting the numbers. They're way down. I want to say it was like 40% as far as revenue. City right behind. Essential services are still on, but they are looking at things like where can they make cuts and how can they make cuts to really kind of still function with the limited amount of money that's coming in. From there, our small businesses. We talked with Frannie. Frannie is kind of doing some great things at the chamber, but even the chamber has been hit hard. They've laid off staff and they're down to one full-time person and one very, very part-time person just to handle the bookkeeping. So across the board, all of us have been pretty well suffering through, I guess, this the new world, so to speak. The nonprofits, Cherokee County is a pretty heavy, for our size of Cherokee County. We had an enormous amount of nonprofits and everyone kind of hitting the same pool of funds to keep these nonprofits funded. So across the board, our nonprofit numbers are down. The Salvation Army has been hit significantly. I sit on the board for there. I'm a one-man Illuminati, so I'm everywhere. So I sit on the board for the Salvation Army. Their numbers are way down. I mean, they're hanging on by donations, but their services are up. So the Salvation Army, for example, we talked about food in Cherokee County. There is no shortage of food simply because of organizations like the Salvation Army and others. Salvation Army, the soup kitchen has jumped. Just to give you an idea, soup kitchen jumped from serving 40 meals a day to 115 meals a day. So that's a huge number for them, as well as giving out groceries. I think they served 600 cars the other day handing out food bags. So there's a lot going on. Teresa Spires is on the phone here. I can see her name with No2. No2 is meeting later this week. There's a board meeting later this week to kind of discuss how No2 is going to respond and what they're going to do moving forward with the new mission statement. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We're working towards some things, but really, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday in the meeting, a lot of this is just really so new and we've not had any real experience in dealing with any of this. So we're some of it's too new to know exactly what we need to be doing. Sometimes we plan things without actually figuring out what the greatest need is. And I think right now we're still trying to figure out what the greatest need is. We can throw money at anything, but it may not be where it needs to go.
Well, and Brian, that's a very good point. And I think that's part of the idea of these conversations is,
that's right.
How do we kind of glean those nuggets in different places, see where there's consistency. And as you guys evolve in your process and they evolve in other places, where are there synergies that we can support, to help create some assistance in various ways for the community. So thank you for that.
How can we all work together? I said it's like a giant onion. There's just many layers to it. There's no one quick fix for any of this. You keep peeling it off and there's still another problem underneath.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep going. I love the conversation, but Aaron, let you ask a couple questions around the business economic development. I think we're getting some answers to some of these questions through that initial first part, which I think was really good. But if you have a couple questions specifically that you want to ask.
Dean, thank you. Yes, I do. And so for example, y'all rated the businesses about between a 6 and an 8 or a 6 in terms
about
of,
a 6.
Pardon me?
About a 6.
About a 6. So, but before the crisis, where would y'all have rated them?
Look, and it's probably just me, unless Jim's I don't see Jim here. Well, Jim is somewhere. I would say really probably 7.
Okay.
We've gone down slightly.
I don't think that you can judge the businesses in town with the industry in town. Those are
That's right.
two definitely different things.
Yeah.
I would say before this all started, it'd probably be a 7 to a 9. I mean, Cherokee County was the #1 economic development in the upstate last year per capita, #3 overall. So we were doing very well anyways. This hurts a little bit. I mean, I'm sure their revenues are down, but they're going to come back. They're going to come back just as strong, if not stronger, than they were prior to this, I'm sure. They're very resilient.
Okay. So good, Jim. Thank you for that. And then that is an important distinction. So, but for the locally owned businesses, that would be the smaller ones, Brian. So you still at 7-ish?
Yeah, I would say we're 6. We've gone down some. We've lost
Okay.
a few, but we've not lost as many as would have been expected.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, but who or what are the go-to resources for those businesses when they started needing to figure out what kind of funding to go after, what kind of new laws they were about their employees? Where did they go?
We've kind of consolidated in our partnership, begin and the Chamber of Commerce. Really, we work together in kind of consolidating our information. We've realized that I could put it out at begin, but it was really going to be duplicate information that the Chamber was going to be putting out. So the Chamber has been kind of the main focal point as far as consolidating all of the information into one newsletter that reaches out to all 450 or so small businesses.
Okay. All right. Very
My
good.
focus is specifically, it's startup and small entrepreneurs, and hers covers a larger area.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Also, I wanted to mention, if anybody wants to provide more depth or more detail about any of these answers, feel free to write that in the chat area. I know sometimes it's helpful to tell a story as an example. So chat area is the perfect place for that. So we have also heard that the smaller businesses and the entrepreneurs were hurt from the revenue perspective. So specifically, what do you think that was? I mean, just less traffic, some more specifics on that. Anybody?
What hurt revenue the most? Stay-at-home orders, social distancing as far as restaurants. We talked about this yesterday. A larger restaurant can consolidate and have tables 8 feet apart and still have enough people, enough bodies in there to make it worthwhile. But a smaller restaurant, you space it apart, you're looking at 2 tables, they're losing money by being open. So the social distancing really, we mentioned 2008. We had the bottom drop out in economics 2008 with the recession. But you add that and couple that with social distancing and the cleaning guidelines and the headaches of trying to maintain that social distancing. It's a whole different ballgame, and it's just way more difficult for these smaller businesses to keep up. One example, the Big E mentioned they've been closed since March 15th of this year. No revenue coming in. Their overhead stays the same. Now couple that revenue loss with when they open up, they've had to pre-purchase a 2-month supply of hand sanitizer, which costs $10,000 just so customers walking in the door can have hand sanitizer when they come in and use the facility. It's a $10,000 expense added on to the loss of income. So it's just a double whammy.
That's a big deal. Okay, good. Good, Brian. Thank you so much. So are there any particular strategies that y'all are looking at going forward for the small businesses and the entrepreneurs?
It's still in process. It goes back to, we're really just trying to see what the biggest need is. It was interesting yesterday to see 2 different perspectives. You got the municipality perspective versus the small business perspective. There were 2 very different sides of the story sitting in the same room. So I'd be curious to see a little more collaboration with some of our business owners to actually address what they really specifically need.
Okay. All right. Very good, Brian. Thank you. And so, Jim, this last one is for you. So regarding the manufacturing and the larger employers, you did a very good job earlier talking about some of what you're seeing with them. Are there any other specific challenges you see going forward that need to be addressed?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges going forward from now is when they did the CARE Act, they decided to put a $600 stimulus in there a week to unemployment claimants. Now, this was originally meant to top them off so they were whole. If they were making $400 a week, they were going to make $400 a week. But the way they did it was incompatible with the stateside unemployment. So now, on top of whatever these individuals are getting for unemployment, they're now getting a $600 stipend on top of that. So even if they were working 10 hours a week, they're going to get that $600 plus whatever unemployment they were going to get. So what's happening now is the larger employers are going to be competing against this unemployment insurance. South Carolina has come out and said that if you are offered a job and you do not take it, that you will now be taken off unemployment. But how long does that take? You know, it can take up to 2 or 3 weeks. These people are getting this unemployment in the meantime, and then they retroactively take it from them, and they owe the unemployment plus they owe interest on top of that. So I think that's going to be a big challenge to all employers when they bring back their people.
That's good, Jim. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Does anybody have, Dean?
Aaron and Ken, thank you for that. I think that's one of those unintended consequences that is just huge. I know we have someone from the Upstate Workforce Board. Anything to add to that, especially around the unemployment side?
Hello? Okay. Yes, so kind of piggybacking off what Brian and Ken were saying, we've been I know Johnny Lynn with SC Works was at that meeting on yesterday. They've been doing a lot of virtual job trainings and kind of showed how that pilot went. It was very successful for the first go with it. So hopefully promoting that will allow people to, or companies and employers to bring some of that workforce back. The problem with the UI that we've experienced in here at our office, and we've been kind of trying to work with mediating, getting people set up with UI, as well as helping those who no longer need it. I think Brian mentioned that the Big E, some of their employees were never even, they haven't filed a claim on them, but they're receiving money. So it's like a glitch in the system. It's not necessarily real time to who's needing the aid. That's everything they've said has been pretty much what was covered yesterday, and what we've been trying to work with the state on figuring out what's the most efficient way to make sure that those who are still job attached are being mandated to return back to work once the return date has been set by their employer.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you, Aaron. Michael, if you could ask a little bit, we heard, no surprise, we already heard a little bit about broadband, which we knew we would, but if you could ask a little bit more about the different elements around infrastructure.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Dean. Let's talk about transportation first. We've seen that a lot of people that are working right now are in the lower wage jobs, and we know that oftentimes lack of transportation is an issue for those kinds of workers. Tell me, has that been a challenge to the businesses in your area, a lack of transportation or issues with transportation and getting to work?
Well, I'll just jump in. Why not? It's always me, and Erin's laughing already. She knows. You know, we had a transportation issue pre-COVID-19 that was pretty significant. We even had a task force in place to kind of look at tackling that with No2 and with a few other community partners. So I would, if I had to assume, I'm going to assume that was heavily compounded by COVID-19.
Okay.
Teresa, anything to add to that from your standpoint?
No, I think Brian's 100% correct. It is still a problem. And I don't think it's a problem that COVID-19 has helped, and I think it's a problem that's only going to get worse. We have very few taxi companies. I don't think Uber really exists here. And we have a lot of people who have no access to transportation. In fact, as Virginia mentioned, we have a lot of students who we've had to figure out how to get food to because the school system decided that the buses were only going to go to specific locations and families were going to have to come pick stuff up. Well, that doesn't work if you have no transportation. So we have a list of somewhere between 50 and 100 children that we actually work with Meals on Wheels to get food delivered to, because there was no other way to feed them. So yeah, transportation is a problem.
Well,
And
Teresa, that number may be a little more inflated than what you just gave, because I know there are teachers who are personally going out and delivering food and food for not only students but for families as well.
yeah, and our neighborhood ambassadors, we have a group of volunteers that feed kids all summer in the public
Right.
in our housing authorities. They have been on the bus. They're on the bus from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Mondays and Thursdays, delivering to public housing authorities and to a number of our trailer parks in the community, where there's just no other way to feed them. I know Christina Cody's doing the same thing on another bus. So, and then other
Right.
teachers are doing it, and Meals on Wheels are doing it. So we're working collaboratively as much as we can to solve the issues as we find them.
Right. I just think there's some numbers out there that probably are not even being reported, because I know there's several of us educators that are just doing it because we know of needs, but we're not reporting it anywhere.
Right.
We just know there's a need, so we're just taking care of it.
Yeah, and I think it'd be great to get some kind of survey after the fact and figure out how problems were solved and who was doing it, and how we can kind of plan for that in the future.
Well, and I think to a lot of your points, we often make the connection between transportation and employment, but there's so many other issues that transportation impacts. So let's talk about some of the other challenges. So as more people look to go back to work, what do you think some of the fundamental challenges are going to be for your community, and how are they trying to understand and address those?
I think childcare is going to be one of them.
Yeah.
With the schools closed, and I don't know about how many childcare centers have reopened and how many of them are feeling comfortable reopening.
Yeah, I think childcare will definitely be one of those. Any other issues? All right. Well, so my last question, we already hit on it earlier, was this the broadband and lack of internet. So what do you think is that lack of internet and broadband access? Is it a major issue, a minor issue? How would you kind of rate where that issue is for your community?
More than 40% of our students and community have no internet access. And I'm talking about they can't afford it. It's just simply not available to them.
Wow.
So it is a major problem in our community, and it's something we're going to have to figure out. I worked for about 11 years in economic development in Western North Carolina, and that was a problem they worked on solving then. And if they can solve it in the mountains of North Carolina, it can be solved here.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this is Ken Moon over with the Cherokee County Development Board. Well, we do have Senator Harvey Peeler. He's been really trying to find a way to fix this the internet problem that we have here in Cherokee County. I mean, there's parts of Blacksburg from the town out until to the hills that doesn't have internet. There's parts of Gaffney that doesn't have internet. And like she said, it's not just that they can't afford it. It's not there. And when you try to get them to run the internet cabling, it is extremely expensive. I'm talking $10,000 for 1,500 feet of internet to be run. I don't know if that's what it actually costs, but that's what they're charging people for it. So it is being worked on, and Senator Harvey Peeler is very engaged on that.
Well, and Ken, if there is a silver lining, I think that nationally, broadband and access to broadband and cable or internet are going to be really seen as a necessary utility in a way that, people have been saying. I mean, when we had our meeting last year, that was one of the issues you all talked about as a challenge at that time. So it's not like it hasn't been known. But I think this crisis, more than anything else, has really brought those issues to the forefront. And so hopefully those are the kind of things that can be addressed, at a more holistic level. So all the counties like Cherokee County aren't having to figure it out on their own over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, one of the big issues is funding. We've even looked at some of the funding from the federal government. They do have grants and such like that. But believe it or not, the only areas that fall in that purview of that grant, when we went to the maps page that they have, is the grassy pond area. And a lot of that area already has internet versus places, like I said, in Blacksburg that don't have anything.
Well, maybe that's something that this situation might change in terms of that all areas, it's about who has or doesn't have as opposed to meeting some specific formula. Last thing I'll say about this, Michael, thank you. Just as a plug for Michael, Teresa, and Brian and others, one of the things that had it not been for COVID-19, Michael would have been out. We would have been out over to your community by now to connect him with you as it relates to him and the Mobility Alliance being a resource for you around some of these issues. So please feel free as you guys move forward looking at mobility and transportation to engage and include Michael in those conversations. And hopefully once we're allowed to come out and visit again, we will be over your way and doing that.
One caveat that I would like to mention in terms of this whole internet issue, because it has been heavy on my mind. It is, with public school and also with the college, we've seen a lot of issues with that. But I think it's important to notice not just those areas that do not have access. I can use my own home as an example. I have a 16-year-old who's been doing schoolwork on, Wi-Fi. I've been doing my work on Wi-Fi. Around me, I have a lot of students who are either in college courses or who are in the public school system. And I noticed once we went to remote instruction, the ability to get on Wi-Fi and sustain also was a huge issue. So it's not just the areas that do not have it, it's the being able to sustain all of the folks that need to use the Wi-Fi at any given moment. Like today, my daughter was very worried because AP exams this week. She said, I hope I don't get bounced off my exam today, because she was having some issues of being bounced on and off of, our service. And we, of course, had never seen a problem with it before. And I guess just because I'm not techie, Brian's probably over there grinning thinking, girl, you should have known this was coming. But it never occurred to me that this could even be an issue. And because I'd not experienced that before. So I think that's one thing we have to remember as well. Some people have Wi-Fi, but if you're in an area where it can be spotty, or I don't know the technical terms for this, the technology folks would know, there's times when you're just completely dropped or it's so slow moving that you can't really access and do the work you need to do, even though you already have the Wi-Fi service. No,
that's a very good point. We've had that issue even at my house as well, and neighborhoods. So you're exactly right. It is more than just access. It's also the the levels of what's available. Going to pivot real quick over to more of the social service needs and challenges. Justine Allen with our team is working around seniors and other pieces. Justine, if you would like to ask a couple questions.
Thank you. I had to kind of giggle because my husband is a computer engineer, and we have 3 people in the house on all the computers all day long, and it still drops out right at that most inopportune time. So thank you, Dr. Skates. You were talking earlier about schools and the part that they've played in bringing meals to individuals, and also the Wi-Fi buses, similar to Greenville County. Is there something in addition that the school districts have done to support social service needs for the school-age children?
We have had our guidance counselors and our folks have been available for students and for families' needs, and that's been put out there. But as far as what I'm aware of, that would be the guidance counselors who have stepped in and tried to work with those families and students, but also teachers. Teachers have found themselves in a counseling role more so than the norm, or maybe not more so than the norm. I don't feel that's accurate. It's probably in different ways than anticipated. So a lot of conversations about, you know, what can we do to help you find the resources that you need for particular areas that you're concerned about. You know, I'm hearing a lot of that, of, you know, parents were not sure of what do I do about, you know, if we don't have the capability to be on our computers, what can I do? Who do I go talk to? What can we do to, some folks had access to Wi-Fi, but actually didn't have, you know, didn't have enough broadband, as we talked about, and, you know, how do we take care of that? Or we just lost a job. You know, a lot of times I don't think people understand how much families will share with teachers. We usually hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, you know, I've heard teachers talk about needing to stand in the gap to be able to talk to parents and say, you know, here's some resources for you that you might could consider. So those are things that I'm aware of. As far as formally above and beyond that, I really haven't been a part of that conversation. I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks. I imagine it's more difficult as you're not person to person in school every day, seeing what the kids, what the looks on their faces too. Do you, does anyone know what the plan is for the summer? Will the school districts continue to provide meals and Wi-Fi throughout the summer?
I don't know if that's at this point has been released. If so, I have not been in on that conversation. I haven't heard anything about the longevity of the program at this point. I know this week, it has continued this week, but now we're going through finals, and, you know, we're still considered in school, quote unquote, whatever that's supposed to look like at this point. I'm not sure about moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, if I could get you in touch with someone that can answer that, I could send you a contact if you'd like to know more about that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
It's, you could send it directly to me. It'sjallen, ALLEN, at 10athetop.org. Or put it in the chat if you think of it while it's still on. So regarding leadership in the community and addressing the needs of individual residents, can you tell us a little more about organizations working together or individually to address the needs of individuals? And we've got some United Way folks on the call, I think.
Yes, this is Tammy. There are Iron City Ministries, and like Brian said earlier, Salvation Army, all of our funded agencies are, I mean, working as well, or what I should say, as best as can be. We reach out to them. We have a meeting. Our CEO holds a meeting with all of our agencies about, I think, every other week now. We started out once a week, but then we extended it every other week. But to find out what their needs are, and I mean, at the beginning it was food, and then they have the food now, as you know, Brian was saying earlier, to give back to the individuals. I think mostly now is just like I said earlier, is just people needing assistance with rent, mortgage payments, and utility payments, and those kind of things. There is some issues with, someone was saying earlier, childcare that has been brought up in our meeting, as far as, you know, when things start picking back up and parents having to return back to their jobs, what they're going to do with their kids. Had a mom tell me last week, which is actually a friend of mine, she said the same. She said their daycare closed, so she was going to have to stay home to keep the kids. She didn't know who, or she knew someone that could keep her child. And mainly just the concerns that have already been discussed is the same issues that we're seeing with the internet issues, the transportation, utilities, mortgage payments, all those things.
Tammy, if I could ask you a quick question. I know in Spartanburg County, the United Way and I think others have come together and created a fund to help support folks in need. Has that happened at all in Cherokee County?
Absolutely, yes. We have it's called the COVID for All. It's, yes. So it's actually, that fund falls under Union, Cherokee, and Spartanburg.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you, in Union County, there has not been, we're very concerned because there's not as many people there reach out for anything. And the funds are there, but they're not utilizing the money there. We are utilizing the funding that we are receiving here in Cherokee County.
Perfect. And another quick question about, is there anyone who's fallen through the cracks? Seniors are a big group to focus on, and I believe that's happened in Cherokee County, but has there been any group that you feel have fallen through the cracks that are not getting their needs taken care of? Anybody? Teresa?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good. That's a good answer.
I would know more after I'm on the No-2 board also. So we will have a meeting on Thursday morning and more info will be shared there. But I think pretty much what I know is just what's already been covered by Brian or some of the others, especially with the education process and stuff.
Great. Well, I know we're getting close to our time and we still have a few questions. Sharon, if you want to wrap us up, and I appreciate especially our Centera folks, Josh and Ben and Catherine. We want to give a minute or so for you guys to ask a question or two as well. So Sharon, if you'll wrap up with a couple questions, and then we'll let our Centera folks have a chance as well for it. I know if anyone has to go, we totally understand, but hope you can hang with us for another couple minutes.
Yeah,
Sharon?
one of the things that I have been hearing from people is there have been interesting partnerships that have cropped up as to deal with this situation. Are there collaborative partnerships that you wish could have been formed early on in the crisis? Anyone? Frannie?
We actually just met with a group where we're trying to get started a recovery task force in Cherokee County with some head leaders to try to discuss where to go after COVID. And that's something I wish we could have started a little bit earlier than now. But it's getting started now. We'll meet again later. We kind of discussed everybody's needs by sector: real estate, education, restaurants, things like that.
Brian gave us an update on that, and that's a great effort. And you're right. I think having these in place probably would have value, but you don't know what you need until you need it, right?
Right.
So Sharon?
How about, are there any type of resources that would be helpful that you have not seen, or if you've seen them in other places, and they might have some benefit in your county?
I actually just got off a call with the Greenville Chamber. That's why I was late to this one. They have sent a letter out to their local officials about what they're doing with tax relief and how to provide that. They sent me a copy of that letter to send to our local legislators, as senators in the House of Representatives are going to be the ones that have to push that. So they sent me that just a little while ago, and I plan on sending that letter out to Senator Peeler and House of Representative Mosses. But other than that, it's kind of everything's already out there, such as loans and grants. Our biggest problem is the smaller businesses not being eligible for things because of revenue from last year, or not having enough employees, or not being able to open back up to accept the grants and loans because they're not open and not able to open due to the governor's restrictions. So they can't bring their people back within the 8 weeks.
Anybody else on that? Do you have a local effort that was already ongoing that's kind of been put on the back burner due to COVID-19?
Frannie, I'm specifically talking about the one that we were working on with Oscar. Where does any of that stand?
Right now, we're just at waiting until we can kind of meet again in person. That was just something that we could move Cherokee County forward. I know Dean's probably mentioned that, but we are waiting. I think really it was Oscar being older was a little bit more afraid of meeting in person and getting sick. And now with still the social distancing policy in place, we're waiting to see what we can do from here.
What about Teresa, and what about with No 2? Is there anything there that's kind of had to be backburnered, or are you guys doing your deal?
Yes, I mean, in terms of like our fundraising, also we are working on a rollout. We just completed a health assessment of the county with Metropolitan Studies Institute, and we were planning a big data walk event to release that information to the community and talk about health needs. We've backed off of that for the moment and are looking at maybe other ways to present that information. Maybe a virtual event, maybe just holding it for a while. We are working with the South Carolina Office of Rural Health. We've got a grant to do a vision for health for Cherokee County, which will be a broader vision than just health. That'll be include the social determinants of health and really look at all of our sectors. So we're moving forward with that plan, but the pieces where we were going to get public input, we're kind of holding off on for now and releasing our data to the public. We're having that discussion on Thursday as to how we want to do that, because we really only get one chance to really make that impact. And we really like to have some opportunities for at least some smaller group face-to-face meetings with some focus groups. And we don't feel comfortable doing that quite yet.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you. Given the continued uncertainty around this crisis, do you in general feel that your county is well prepared to be able to maintain support for the ongoing challenges if it's another 3 or 6 months? Or do you think things might dry up? And
I think, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So I think everybody's trying to find ways to help out and move forward, but it's just not having the ability or the say-so to do so, and the uncertainty of it all. There will be more businesses that probably don't make it, but hopefully not too many more.
Great. Well, let me turn it over to Catherine and Josh and Ben. Anything from you guys? Catherine? There
I think I'd disappoint Josh if I didn't ask a question, so I can do that. Yeah, Teresa, you kind of hit on it a little bit with public engagement, but I was just going to ask, like, what ways are you looking to get creative with still engaging the public, and are there gaps in your capabilities in order to do that you're currently trying to assess? And Pat, you might be able to answer that question too.
Well, I'm going to rely heavily on Brian if we have to go to a virtual format. But we are looking into what that might look like. I'm not a huge tech person, but I am doing some research on, how would that work? I mean, we could definitely do some Zoom meetings and pull some focus groups in that way, but I don't know that we'll get the level of engagement that we were really looking for. Because we were looking, one of the things that I've been charged with is reinvigorating No 2 and redoing our task forces and bringing those back together to start moving things forward again. And that is really on the back burner until we can actually meet with groups. So it may come down to just doing some Zoom meetings if this thing goes on much longer. Just feel like sometimes it's better to have a face-to-face meeting if you can do it. And this is great if you already know people or if you have a specific topic, but when you're really starting to kind of get the warm and fuzzy stuff going, it's really hard to do that with a group of strangers in on virtually. So we'll see.
Josh, anything to add? I like the beard.
Thank you very much, Dean. This is day 65 on the COVID beard, so I appreciate that. I did finally trim it this past weekend. It was overdue.
Notice that.
So I got a home haircut this weekend for my wife for the first time, so that went great. No, we just we're here in support of our friends in Cherokee County, and we're part of the Upstate family, so we want to learn what all is going on in Cherokee County and try to figure out how we can best serve them, just like we do the other counties around here.
Great. Ken, anything to add from your end with economic development? It sounds like you guys have obviously some challenges and concerns, but manufacturers have, at least so far, seemed to adapt fairly well. Any concerns moving forward?
No, I mean, there's always going to be concerns, but I mean, what great things and what we think is coming is that the state's going to continue to step up and help us get stuff when we need it. I mean, 10 at the Top's been an amazing ally with Upstate Alliance. Everybody's been chipping in, so I just want to tell everyone that we appreciate all the help that everyone's doing.
Great. Well, that's a great way to get us to wrap up. And again, I thank all of you. Frannie, did you have a comment? I think you.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with the 10 at the top and everybody working together. It really has been good.
Well, good. Well, we appreciate that, and we appreciate all of your guys' involvement. And as you said, as we've said, we're here to help and support you. We're trying to understand, with these conversations, and we'll, take what we've heard from you all today and try to synthesize it into, some specific points. And then as we go to the other counties, we'll hear what their issues are, and then hopefully we can identify some ways we can continue to support all of you as you're meeting with your task force, and Teresa with your group with No 2, and Frannie, of course, with the chamber and others. If there are things that you start talking about, I wish we had some knowledge or assistance or help around X. Please let us know. And if there's if we have a connection in other places that can help you with that, we certainly want to do that and be a supporter. So thanks to our team for being part of this, and all of them are here as resources for you. We'll make sure that everybody's contact information is in the email that we send out to you all as well. And again, thanks to you guys. If you think of anything in the next day or two, please feel free to share it with Sharon or myself. And with that, we will adjourn and wrap up. So thank you all, and please be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.